it's not about failure per se. People don't fail. They tend to come up with suboptimal work at times. Criticize that. Go after the work, not the person, right? When you do that, it really becomes obvious what's the problem. The people are not the problem, it's the work. Let's go tackle the work. Let's see what we can do to make it better. And by the way, most of the time I just get out of the way because my team has been with me for a while. They kind of know what I expect. I can tell you that 3 out of 4 times when I get something, it's hitting the mark. It's got the quality essence that I expect to see. And I don't spend a lot of time pushing people over a certain virtual line, right?
Yeah, so that kind of goes into a different bend of the questions here, which is, to us, marketing is kind of an extension of an art. Certainly there's science behind it and data and whatnot, but the thinking that it requires is artful thinking. So how would you describe your philosophy related to marketing? How would you describe your philosophy related to marketing? How Saar sees the world through the lens of marketing?
Well, I think that the essence of marketing, and certainly there's art to it, but the essence of it is to provide the right information to the right people at the right time. That to me is all, if you want to sum it up in one sentence.
Yeah.
And the right information is not just the dry information, but again, going back to how you tell that story. And if you want to tell a good story, you can't tell a good story without knowing the person that you're telling that story to, who they are, what are their pain points, what are their aspirations, and how can you tell a story that will be relevant to them in a visceral way, not just in a logical way, but it would somehow land in their gut. And we pressure test all the work that we do with customers, with groups. We do A/B testing. And I think that if you want to be a good marketeer, you can't settle for anything less than when you see that or hear it, it's like, wow, we got it, right? This is it. I'm getting the reaction that I need to get. Be relentless about that. Don't lie to yourself. And don't just get the job done or check the mark. I think if anybody thinks that marketing is about completing tasks, that's not really it. It's about getting to that moment where people are somehow touched by something that you have to say and connect to it in a visceral fashion.
Hear, hear.
Now, again, don't get me wrong. Underneath that, give them all the details, right?
Yep,
features,
sure.
Functions, benefits, all that stuff is important as well. But if you want to open doors and open hearts, you got to tell a good story.
So how do you encourage your team to stay focused on that? Because I know it's so easy to just get sort of wrapped up in the world that you live in, right? And we have to, it's difficult sometimes to go into the world of the audience. So any strategies that you have to kind of elicit that?
Yeah, again, I'm more involved in asking to see those things before they leave the door. And they get a call. If I think that we rushed into something, that it's not where it needs to be, where I'm having more of an issue, and it happens in every matrix organization. We in tech, and I think in other businesses as well, you have product marketing folks that are really kind of focused on a single product or a single solution. And then you've got what we call central marketing or corporate marketing, where all the execution happens. And so product marketing right now is sitting with the product groups. And so there's less direct influence that I have on that group, but we do have conversations on an ongoing basis. I do get involved, and if something doesn't add up, they hear from me. I think you just set the expectation, Emily, that's what you want to see, and you can't settle for anything less than that. And it's difficult, I think, for tech companies which do have solutions that are highly technical, that are designed for tech people. But guess what? Technical people are still people. They can be inspired.
Yeah.
We've seen that struggle working with software companies at first, or highly technical companies, and but once they get it, as you're saying, once that moment hits them, those words hit them in the gut, they realize that they can do everything else, explain all the features, afterwards. And
Yes,
that's powerful
yes.
to take that in and then run with it.
And the other piece that you have to pay attention to, you have to guide your teams to not to think about necessarily the products that they sell, but what would those products do for their customers and how would they serve their customers if you're in the B2B space?
Right.
So if you're selling a help desk solution or you're selling a monitoring solution, how would they use it, for instance, to maintain their business? For a bank, what does that mean? That their computers are up and running 24/7. How quickly can they adapt for their customers, right? So you got to think in a sense of what would your buyer do with your solutions and how would they inspire their customers to do business with them? I think there's a value chain that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah. I've been at this a long time. I've been a CMO, much smaller companies, but I've been a CMO a couple times. And I was the CMO of a software company for a while, and then also had some interactions with some very large companies and their tech companies and their marketing infrastructure or apparatus. And there's two things I noticed that were sort of like almost like blind spots. One was where the product team or the dev team would work on their stuff and bring it to the marketing department and go, here, now market this. And so when I was the CMO of a software company, we basically insisted that marketing had to be in the early design, at least to have a voice in it, to have some input. I used to say we needed to put our DNA in it, like, so that it's got some connection to our reality. The second one is I noticed it goes the other, that marketers generally don't pretend like they know tech or dev, but a lot of dev guys think they know marketing. And so there's this interesting, like, oh, I think I know what you do. You don't understand what I do. And there's this sort of like imbalance. And so what are your thoughts on that? Does that resonate with you?
Resonates 100%. I think on the first one, we call it the conveyor belt approach. Something fell off the conveyor belt, now go market it, right? Got the factory, it's churning products. Here you go. Go figure that one out. And I can tell you on the curve, I think we're doing a little bit better, but we're still what I call too much factory driven at BMC, where it all starts with an idea. That idea is not necessarily vetted with customers the way it should up front. You end up with a product, you got to figure out what's the value points and who to sell it to and all that stuff. And it's happening more at the end. And I agree with you 100%. I think that solid businesses that want to be successful with their innovation have to work the other way around, or at least have to have some marketing input up front. And the second point was, again?
Just the second one was that marketers generally don't, I've noticed, don't like
yes,
project
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, but
so everybody has a marketing job in your company, right? That's the general sense. And I can tell you that I get at least 3 or 4 emails every day, if not more. I think we should do this. Doesn't matter what your job is. With by the way, all good intended, right? Great intentions. They see something. Some of those ideas are actually useful, and you see where they fit, and you're able to execute. Many others are reactionary. I think one area where you tend to see more of that coming is they tell you, oh, this competitor, we should say so-and-so about them. We should go after them, right? We should be aggressive. You typically get that from sales. Let's be aggressive. Let's go and say so-and-so about competitor X and Y. And when you explain that the best way to approach your market is with a value that you bring and not discounting what somebody else is doing and frankly putting a subjective lens on it, they think you're weak. And it's not hitting and jiving with them. Again, salespeople are usually type A's, predators. They're like, let's go and conquer the world. But yeah, I think it's like that with every company. You have to deal with it. You have to be patient. You have to respond back and explain and be transparent about what you're doing or not doing and why and where it fits. And the worst thing you can do is to completely ignore it, I think. The other thing that to know about marketing, and you guys know it, is we serve a very, very broad ecosystem. So it's not just the customers or the prospects. You've got employees, all departments engaged with marketing, all the way up to the CEO. You've got the press, you're dealing with competitive forces. And so respect is a word I like. in the context of marketing. You have to respect everybody. You have to address everything that comes up. Don't show or give people the impression you're hiding something or that you're reluctant to give them a response. It's okay to tell no, to tell people no. And here's why I'm telling you that I won't do it. But don't just ignore it.
Yeah, that's wise.
We've got a great question in the chat if you're ready for it. It's from Tony. How do you encourage colleagues that are not natural storytellers to express passion? It doesn't come easily for everyone. So just because you have a powerful story from marketing, how do you ensure it's told powerfully?
Well, that's a great question. Oddly enough, guys, everybody's got a passion for something. And some people naturally are passionate about their families. Some people have a hobby that they're passionate about. I'm a motorcycle rider. I love everything about it. So I'm also passionate about that. And one technique that you use is you try to connect to that side of them. And take that emotion that's being generated when they talk about their kids or talk about their hobbies and try to have it applied towards business and towards things that they need to sell, things that they need to market. Somebody smarter than me said one time that selling is an art of moving your passion from yourself to your buyer, right? You transfer the passion. And by the way, not every marketing function or role needs to show passion. There are very important roles in marketing that are more operational in nature, more process-oriented in nature, critical to the process of marketing, but not every marketeer, I think, is required to have the same amount of passion for what they do. So, but that's one way of helping people kind of extract it. And if somebody's not passionate about anything, I don't know what you do. It's hopefully there are not too many people out there like that. It's not a way to live.
That's a good tip, though. That's a really good tip, just to try to crack into that emotional space that they have for something else maybe in their lives. Yeah, redirect it. I have another question on storytelling that came to me as you were speaking. You mentioned earlier that you think a lot of brands get it wrong, just get storytelling wrong. So can you say, like, maybe give us an example of how people kind of get it wrong?
Well, I'm not going to get into specifics again. I'm a big believer in uplifting and not going after specifics. But I encourage people to just go out there and Google or look at companies' vision statements or mission statements. It really all starts there for me. It's what drives them, or at least what CEOs put out there as the prerogative of the company, as the heartbeat. Go out there and choose the brands that you know, whether ones that you think are doing a good job or not, and you're going to be shocked how many mission statements and vision statements only talk about value to shareholders. That's kind of the story that they tell. And we exist to maximize our shares and increase the value to our shareholders. That is so uninspiring to me. And by the way, having that kind of a mission statement doesn't mean the company fails. But I think it's going to have a hard time inspiring people to go above and beyond. I think it's probably not maximizing its potential. And I think storytelling needs to start at that level of the mission and vision statement. And again, I encourage folks to go out and Google and look at some of those things. And I was shocked when I did this exercise, and every now and then I do it. It's not getting any better, unfortunately.
Yeah, interesting. So you've had a very interesting career arc. You know, with 6 years in the Israeli Air Force as an officer. As you think about what you're doing now as a leader and as a CMO, what are some things that being an officer in the Air Force taught you about where you're at today? Where are some things you're still using from that time you spent in the Israeli Air Force?
Well, thank you, Justin. There's just a ton of things. I'll just touch on a few. I think it shaped to a large degree who I am today. Probably the bigger one is the notion of no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You can sit there and plan all you want. The marketplace is dynamic, and you look at your KPIs.